$130 billion. That's the size of the Indian wedding industry as per the latest report by Jefferies.
Industry estimates 32 lakh weddings are set to take place in India over the next 1 month.
India's wedding economy to be the second largest industry of the country.
And also, it's more than the GDP of Sri Lanka, by the way. With more than 1 crore weddings each year, it is a strange recession-proof space where India is spending more annually than it spends on clothing and footwear combined. So be it Ambanis or your next door Guptaji or Sharmaji, we all love big fat weddings more than roti and kapra. Why? What's driving this? And more importantly, where does the money go? And where is the opportunity here? In this video, we are going to dive deep into the consumer insights and break down the parts of the industry where the opportunity lies. And who knows, by the end of this, you might just spot an opportunity to build something of your own. Also, we even talked to Navam Gupta, a GrowthX member who is the founder of Wed Haven, an interesting wedding management tech to simplify big fat Indian weddings. But if you're new to the channel, then hello, you've landed at GrowthX, an invite-only community of over 3,000 members who are product, marketing and business leaders and also founders from India's most interesting businesses. See, India has been highly obsessed with marriages for more than a few decades. It is not about two people here. It's about the celebration of two families and going overboard to celebrate that. Yeah, extremely overboard. And we all know this, right? Be it crazy destination weddings or calling Bollywood celebrities for performances. It's probably the only place where a price-sensitive Indian consumer loses all rationale and goes all in. In fact, if you would compare us with a market like US, you would see that the Indian wedding market is 2x the size of the US wedding market right now. And this is only going to grow at 20 to 30% CAGR because we are a young country with a median age of 28 years and the total addressable market is huge every freaking year. So let's dive into the first part of video where we covered the first 3 stages of life cycle a user goes through when he or she thinks about wedding and also understand where most of the money goes in a wedding market. If you look at this diagram carefully, you would see that there's a market at each of these stages. There's a pre-wedding stage, there's an actual wedding stage, and then there's a post-wedding stage. As you can see, the first stage is where the entire industry of matchmaking comes up. Apps like jeevansathi.com, shadi.com, matrimony.com, and if you include dating too in this with apps like Bumble, Hinge, Isle, etc., this sector alone is about $300 million big. On the other end, in the post-wedding cycle is where the entire industry of traveling and honeymoons comes up. So it involves OTA players like Ixigo, MakeMyTrip, Booking.com, and it also includes a lot of hospitality players, by the way, which again is a big fragmented industry having brands from Hyatt, Taj and 100 others. Awesome. Now in the middle stage of the chain is where actually the wedding happens. This again can be split into 3 parts interestingly. One is vendor discovery, basically where users discover vendors via marketplaces like Wedding Sutra, WedMeGood, etc. Second is vendor hiring, basically hiring other vendors who can provide you a bundle of custom solutions like sets, DJs, decorators, designers, choreographers, and many others who can do different interesting stuff for you basically. And third is the execution of wedding planning. Interestingly, this is where text comes in a lot. All the softwares basically needed to make sure that the event is planned properly, so be it sending updates, collecting documents online, basically communicating with hundreds of guests in an efficient way. Now there are a lot of emerging companies here who are trying to do good stuff, one of which is the company that we talked about, Wed Haven. And also there are big international examples like WithJoy, Knot and many more that have cracked this model really well in the US. But before we get into understanding where the money actually goes, I have something super special for you. See, if you're in a product, marketing or strategy role or even a founder, understanding how your product drives revenue is super crucial. And that's why we created the 4-week growth program where you learn the entire A to Z of growth. You'll understand how to acquire customers, how to onboard them, retain them, and last but not the least, how to monetize them. By the way, this learning happens along with peers who are leaders, operators, and even founders of some of the top companies of India. And this is taught by program directors who have built and led growth teams at companies like Crore, Dunzo, and Razorpay. And not just that, You'll also learn from CMOs, CTOs, CBOs of India's top startups on weekly freaking basis. This program starts on December 1st and we only accept 50 members every week. So hurry up and check out more about the program from the link in the description. Coming back to understanding where the money actually goes. See, an average mid-level Indian wedding involves expenditure of about 15 to 20 lakh rupees. And interestingly, these mid-level marriages are actually running the industry, and it's not the Ambanis, because these marriages are like 51% of all Indian weddings by count and 63% of entire country's wedding expenditure. And here's the breakdown of everything, from invites to planning to catering to logistics to jewelry to everything. But if you zoom out and look at the pie chart carefully, you would see that catering, event planning, jewelry, apparel is where the main money goes. But now let's talk about the consumer insights. What are the consumer doing differently that's actually driving this insane market? The first insight of aspiration and debt. See, India has become an aspirational market right now. And it goes for even the tier 2 and tier 3 markets. We all know this, right? How people went bonkers over the Coldplay concert recently, the tickets of which are now being resold for up to 3 lakhs, by the way. People want to spend for experiences and want to aspire for the best, and are caring a lot about how they get perceived in society as well, be it real life or real life. This again can be seen from how we are purchasing stuff, right? The average order value on e-commerce, for example, in a tier 2 city is not very far away from what a tier 1 is spending. And you can spot this pattern in every tiniest of things we do. iPhones can be spotted all around us because of one thing: signaling. But you'd be shocked to know that 71% of these iPhones are being bought on EMIs. The new millennials and Gen Zs are using EMIs a lot. So while the newer generation have been using debt a lot for materialistic expenses, the older generation has been depending a lot on debt for weddings. And you'd be shocked to know that as per the data by WedMeGood and India Lens, 1 out of every 3 weddings in India are financed by parents alone. But how do they finance this? The answer is personal loans. In fact, 20% of all loans applications in country by young Indians pre-COVID were for weddings. And this happens because people are willing to spend 20 to 30% of their entire life savings on one occasion. By the way, the glamour of Bollywood weddings has just added the fuel to the fire, making more people go bullish on big weddings. So this trend is definitely not stopping soon. And as that happens, there's a lot of opportunity for new businesses to come up in spaces of jewelry and apparel and create some great premiumized brands. Because these spaces have already seen players like Manyavar, Sabyasachi, Tanishq, Kalyan Jewelers, and many more who have created trust in an extremely difficult space. And now they are charging a premium not for their product's quality but for trust. In fact, Manyavar is a 1300 crore brand that is based on only one primary idea of selling wedding clothes. A seasonal but a huge business. And there's still a ton of opportunity here, because in a nutshell, both jewelry and clothing market are just 40% organized and are largely unbranded. And as per capita increases and more people transcend toward brands, there's a great possibility for more brands to come up in different price points and different budgets. And I'm not just talking about creating clothing and jewelry brands focused on 1 crore grooms and brides who are getting hissed every year. I'm talking about the 100 crore people in minimum who are attending at least one wedding each year in the country. In fact, you can validate this by looking at the data and financials of most of the ethnic and formal brands in the country. You would see that most of these brands see a significant boost in revenues during the wedding season. This renting solution is again a very interesting way to solve for aspirational users who want the best of the best sherwanis or lehengas from top designers but can't actually afford it. So rent your lehengas or sherwanis can be an interesting model very soon. Now let's talk about the second consumer insight, the insight of convenience and choice. And this is interestingly being enabled by tech. See, tech is getting more and more involved in this ecosystem. So what started with just WhatsApp invites and drones in the weddings is now turning out to create doors for a lot of new businesses. And let's get down to the how. 90% of the weddings are planned in India by not the grooms and brides, but by the parents. And there's a very interesting thing happening here. People are cutting their guest list and using that money to solve for making the event bigger. In numbers, the average Indian wedding used to have 350 to 400 people pre-COVID, and now this number has fallen to 250 people. And now I want you to just imagine a typical wedding function, right? This is not a one-day event. There's an average of 4 functions, including haldi, engagement, sangeet, mehendi, and so much more. It's an event manager's nightmare. That's why more and more tech-based solutions are needed here to make the experience better for both the families.
Joint family as a concept is changing as people are separating, they're more individualized and alone and all, migrating for jobs. There's a lot of reasons. Right? As the people are doing that, they are now looking at solutions which can ease their work. जो पहले काम आप 10 लोग करते थे, अब लोग 4 लोग करें, they would want a solution.
And this convenience is being solved with tech through 3 major solutions. The first is marketplace models. See, marketplace models are just like Amazon for wedding planners. The user can go on a particular marketplace and look for different vendors and get quotes. So be it photographers, designers, or choreographers. Companies which we have already discussed like Wedme Good, Wedding Sutra, Wedding Bazaar, Shadi Dukan, Shadi Saga are some of the companies that have popped up in this space. This again is a very fragmented market, but a marketplace that does something super unique for its users and does a great value bundling of different services together can create a moat for itself. The next is customization. This is basically having a subway-like experience for the user, because every user, which is the bride and groom, want a certain specialized experience for their wedding. Be it aesthetic, music, vibe of the wedding. Indians want their weddings to be special, and even males have started taking active involvement in making sure how the wedding turns out. Again, this space has another interesting company called Miragi that does the extensive customization of decor for different functions. By the way, Miragi has just raised $9 million recently, which involves investment from Sequoia and also Axel, which shows us that even the top VCs of the country are looking after this space actively. And now coming down to the third interesting thing, which is probably the most unsexy area but has a lot of possibilities. Having a SaaS or an app to solve for all the tedious communication work that goes in a wedding. And I'm talking about every basic stuff, right? Be it talking to guests, updating them about the timings of certain functions, sending them invites, or collecting ID documents for hotel entries. Everything can be solved very interestingly through a SaaS. And if you want to understand more about the use of wedding tech in the B2C space, then you should study the US market. Because people there are using softwares like Bitjoy and others to make custom invites lists, custom wedding websites, and doing all interaction with guests through these custom solutions. So while the Indian market, both B2B users and both B2C users are taking their due time to get used to tech, this is something that's only going to improve with time. Awesome. So these were some interesting insights about the wedding industry and also about the users of this exponentially growing wedding industry. If you like this video, you would definitely love the last compilation episode we did on top fashion brands of country. Go ahead and check that out. Also, don't forget to subscribe us for more such deep, insightful episodes. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.